It says iPad Yetta, Johnny. Yetta is Youngstown.
Okay, Iris is on. We had about 50 people. We'll wait a couple minutes because we have a packed hour and we don't want to lose out on any of our time. Johnny, is everybody just entering? Are you letting people in or are they just?
They're entering.
Okay, great. All right, then we don't have to worry about it. So
Johnny, Karen Zucrose from Northwest Indiana.
and Dan is from Fort Wayne. Hi, Dan, it's been a while. Hi, Iris.
Good morning.
Shalom, Erev Tov. Hi, everybody. Good to see you.
Good to see everybody. All right, we're gonna get Amy's on Louisville. Okay, Northwest Indiana is Karen. All right, should we get started then, please? Thank you all for being here.
Hi, everyone. It's very, very nice and exciting to see you. I imagine that there'll be more people joining as we get started, but we're going to get started because we have a short amount of time and lots that we want to do. I want to say two things. First of all, thank you for your time and interest. I want to say thank you to Marcy, who set this all up, and she's made a really great itinerary for us for the next hour. And the third thing I want to say is that I don't know about you, but the newspapers that I read, Ukraine has gone down a couple of headlines. It's not at the top anymore. But if you look, I mean, if you read the media enough, you still find enough terrible stories about what's going on there. Yesterday and today there were missiles in Kiev, the capital city, and I think just because it's not at the top of the headlines anymore, it's just as terrible, it's just as much of a crisis, it's just as traumatic for the individuals. And thank you for your interest and your support. And to all of the people who are going to speak and present now for your involvement. Marcy, do you want to say a word?
No, I just want to say thank you all for being with us today, and this support is so important, and I'll be back toward the end, so thank you all for being here.
So without further ado, we are going to hand over to Maya Shoam from one of the Jewish Agency's other partnerships. Maya recently returned from leading a Jewish Agency mission to Budapest, and she's going to tell us about it. So thank you, Maya, for joining.
Thank you for inviting me. Like 2 weeks after Passover, as Johnny mentioned, you hear less and less about what is going on in Ukraine. But I received a call from my boss, Nina, if I will be willing to chaperone and be the head of a volunteer delegation to one of the borders in Ukraine to help in the mission, in the operation. And I answered her, it was on WhatsApp text. I answered yes, when? Even before I asked my husband and everything, because you know, I've been working in the partnership world for 15 years, and this was like an opportunity to take my head above water and see other things that the Jewish Agency have been doing. And the when was very soon. It was 5 days later, no time to get really prepared. And I joined the Zoom with volunteers from both Israel and North America. 3 were from the East United States and from Connecticut area and Virginia, and one was from Toronto, and 3 other Israelis that are all of them Russian speaking. So we were all together a delegation of 8. The Jewish Agency apparently during the operation have developed procedures, and the procedure said that the head of the delegation needs to be a Jewish Agency employee, not necessarily knows the language, but the volunteers need to know the language. And we will see later as I go with my story why this became very important structure of the work. So I'm heading. I was on the Zoom and a lot of explanation about COVID, of course, which is the big question of everyone traveling abroad these days, and some very basic mental preparation on who are we going to meet there. But you know, it's coming in and out, and it's during work, and you don't really know what you're going to. But one of the reasons they asked me to join is because I work with partnership, and I'm leading joint American and Israeli delegations for so many years. So for me, it was okay. We are going to have a joint delegation, and we will have like a Tikkun Olam program to do together, and we'll get there and we'll figure it out. So I will run fast forward to share with you only one picture that I have from that event, and I'll tell you why. And that is the picture of Ukraine and the borders. The one reason I have is that when the Jewish Agency started the operation, they a few weeks before it even started, they decided to build and rented rooms in the area of Lviv, which is in Ukraine. And they said probably everyone will run to our location, and we are well prepared, it will be great. But then like 3 days after, they discovered that people are running for the closest border they can reach. And some ran to Romania, and some ran to Hungary, and some ran to Poland, and some ran to Belarus. And there were also some who went to Russia, those who couldn't have family there. And actually, the Jewish Agency had to build a new strategy, and they put people on the borders to receive the refugees, figuring out who is Jewish and who is not. There were a lot of help organizations on the borders. So we were like one of the biggest, I need to say, but we were one of. And from the border, they were sent into the big city. In my case, it was Budapest, Hungary, but in case of Poland, it was Warsaw, Bucharest in Romania, and so on. At the beginning, only Budapest had 4 hotels with 1,000 rooms. At the beginning of the operation, in the first 2 months, 1,000 rooms, not 1,000 people, 1,000 rooms that held much more. But I arrived after 2.5 months, and things got, you know, a little bit more organized. First, because the government of Israel decided that they are going to do a fast-track aliyah for those that they know have either family here or the documents were very clear, and they're going to come to Israel first, and then they're going to work on the documents to receive citizenship. That was the first thing. The second thing is everyone that ran, you know, the first wave was very big, but people who chose to stay had 2 main issues. One is that it wasn't their first priority to run. It wasn't their first priority to find a better place like Israel. And second, they experienced a war. They experienced bombing, they sat in shelters, and they were actually harmed, some physically, but more mentally from the bombing. And these were the kind of people that we received in the last hotel that is these days in Budapest. The whole operation was minimized these days to fit the number of people that are actually coming. There is one border in Poland and the other one in Budapest. And since I didn't take photos, although the Jewish Agency really wanted me to take photos, but since I didn't, because I just couldn't, it was like, you know, some kind of to exploit people's situation doing so. I am going to ask you, I'll give you, I'm going to take you into imaginary world and ask you to imagine the two pictures who left a very meaningful mark on me. And Johnny is asking me to finish, so I'll take 60 minutes for those two pictures. One is that I'm sitting outside of the hotel. It's on the main street in Budapest, and talking with one of my volunteers about something. And there's a woman coming out to the sidewalk, and there is a beautiful Lexus car, 4-on-4 wheels, you know, very prestige car. And I hear the opening the car, and then I hear another one, and she's opening her the back of the car. And I'm looking at this beautiful car, and what I see is a car full of clothes and carpets and, you know, things from her bathroom. And it was, you know, all over. You couldn't see the car. You can just see her house in the car, like a person who took everything he could at that moment and put it inside his prestige car. And that is what he has these days. I don't even know if this woman is Jewish or not. I don't know her, but that was like shocking for me, because we all live in
Thank you,
this.
Maya.
But one more picture I need, Johnny, for people to understand. The other picture is a woman that came to the hotel. She's Jewish, and she was with an 11-month-old baby. Most of the refugees are women and their children. And she had her daughter, baby, wore beautiful clothes. Every day she looked like a doll, you know, with everything. But her arms were with the burn of cold from sitting in the basement of her house for 2 months until she decided to run. And everything, and I told my volunteer, look how beautiful her child is, what the clothes she's wearing. So my volunteer is saying, did you see that her child is wearing beautiful clothes, but the mother didn't change her clothes once, and they're so big on her? So that was like, sorry, I took a minute more, Johnny. Thank you
That's
for
okay.
inviting me.
I thank you, Maya, and I know it's really hard. Everyone has such inspiring, sad, terrible stories, and we want to hear as much as possible. Thank you. So we're going from Maya's experience in Budapest to Budapest and Asaf would like to introduce Yutzi, who also works at the Jewish Agency in Budapest.
Hi, everyone. Well, a little bit, few words what happened in Budapest in the end of February. So in the end of February, we heard about the war coming next to us, and I'll try to show you a little bit what we're talking about, if I'll be able to show you again the map. So this is Hungary, right? And we have about 180 miles of border with Ukraine. We have a very big crisis management team here in Budapest, and we went out with 3 cars. We went out to the border. The war began on Thursday. On Monday, we've been in the border already, meeting all the Jewish communities that are the Hungarian Jewish communities out on the border. We were talking to them what is going to be our tactics, how are we going to help them We went to each community, saw their shelter places, because we know that the influx will come in few days. And we went from one to each other. We had about 4 small communities, 1 big communities on the border, and we began a daily connection to them. And getting back to Budapest, we had a lot of calls from all over the world, from JDC, from the Sochnut, from private volunteers, really a lot of volunteers, a lot of people that want to help us. And what we did is it's like a coalition of the JDC, of the Sochnut, of the Hungarian Jewish movements, and we had it all organized under our crisis management. And I want to present you Yutzi, or Yutzi Kesegi, and she is one of the workers of the Jewish agency here in Budapest.
Hi
Yeah.
everyone. Hi everyone. Hi Maya.
Hi.
We spent a few times together and in the time when she was here. So I'm the local staff of the Jewish agency here in Hungary, Budapest. And basically how the whole story started for us, that we had a winter camp of the Zimnik group, which is a program of the Jewish agency. And before the last day of the camp was the first day of the war. And we had this camp around the 120, 130 people from the ex-Soviet Union countries. So we already knew it, that it's already on us, even that the war really started. We had, from this group, we had like approximately 50 people from Ukraine. So we were pretty sure that these people will not go home. They didn't want it to go home, and we also didn't want it that they go home as well. And the other thing is that, and another thing started, as Asaf said, we had a great and very, very big cooperation in the Jewish community, which never happened before. So I was really happy that we could make it happen. The refugees started to come, I think, on the end of the first week of the war, and the biggest amount of people what we had before Pesach, around Pesach, it was 5 hotels and approximately 1,200 people. In that time, all the 5 hotels was belonging to us, belonging to the Jewish agency, and later on we divided the hotels between us and between the Jewish community. Whoever wants to make Aliyah nowadays come to our hotel. Who doesn't want to make Aliyah, want to stay in Hungary or continue their journey to the Western European countries, they go to the hotels which is belonging to the Jewish community. And what was the tendency in the beginning of the war? That huge amount of people came every day. The biggest amount was 150 people in a day, means that 3 buses. In that point, we took the refugees from the border, from the Hungarian side of the border by buses to Budapest to the hotels, stayed in our hotels and make their decision if they want to continue to Western European countries or they want to make Aliyah. That was basically when we had the most crucial times. Afterwards, that less and less people started to come, and more families started to come, and these families mostly wanted to continue their journey to Israel. So now, for example, nowadays we have 100 people in our hotel, and we have like 20 people in the hotel of the Jewish community. So it's now it's much less people who want to continue and who want to continue to Western European countries. And now the people who are coming now, it's much better. They are much worse conditioned than how the people were in the very beginning, and they need much more help in a case of, let's say, health. And this is the way how I pass back the words to Asaf to continue with the medication of the refugees. Thank you.
So yeah, I just want to add to Yutzi, we got a rumor from Ukraine that Jewish people are going to cross to the border, are going to come to the border. A lot of different ways they got into a, let's say, Jewish bus, and they got into the border, the crossing border, and they walked through the border because the bus couldn't go through the border. So had to go down from the buses as a group, come through the border, and our buses, the Sochnut or the Jewish community, buses were waiting for them, picking them up without questioning so much, if you're Jewish, what's your, the people that were on that bus, walking through the border, going to the second bus and going to Budapest. And thousands of people were coming like that in a period of 2 months. No medication, a lot of them were exhausted, a lot of them didn't have anything to eat for days, only to getting to the border took them 3-4 days. And so with the help of the Jewish Agency and the JDC together with the Jewish community, we opened in our hospital a primary care unit, which was working almost every day. Now it's as much as less people are coming, the inflow is decreasing. We decreased the hour of opening of this primary care center. We rent a big bus. We went to the hotels, went through the hotels, through all the hotels, and asked if somebody needed medical care. Somebody needed the medical care, we would pick him up, take him to our hospital, the Jewish hospital, and doing all the examination needed. We had a contract with the pharmacy that we are going to pay for all their medicines. And still till today, don't forget, we're talking about the very ill. Well, all the young adults, males, were not allowed to go through the border. So it was very above 65 males, above 65 can go through the border. So it was children, women, and very old people. The children, not all of them, but we don't know anything about the mandatory vaccination. Most of them were not vaccinated. Nobody knew about the vaccination against COVID. As Yutzi said, in the first 150 group, the 150 youngsters that were stuck here in the beginning of the war, as much as I remember, 10 had COVID. And they had signed for COVID, and we didn't want to let them into the hotel without doing them tests, and they were positive. And we picked them up and we put them on quarantine in our hospital. There were a lot of gastrointestinitis. There were a lot of diarrhea. We don't know what they were eating on the buses, on the trains. We had all the hotel got gastroenteritis. All the hotel had diarrhea, vomiting. As much as I remember, 3 children had to be hospitalized for that. And still, now it's much, much less. Now it's decreasing the amount of influx from Ukraine. We have some people that are stuck here, that cannot go to Israel because they don't have the needed papers. They cannot go to Western Europe because they don't have relatives, and they're going to stay with us. That's it.
Thank you very much, Asaf.
Johnny, I never saw Asaf. This is the first time. I just want to say one thing. Asaf, from the side of the patients where I was in the hotel, I want to tell you that your hospital has been given an amazing care for those people. They came back every time they went on the bus, came back shocked from the personal attention and the care that you provided them, and the stop in the pharmacy to get the drugs. It was really amazing. Thank you, Asaf.
Thank you, Maya, and thank you, Asaf. And
Our pleasure.
And Marcy has set this up beautifully so that we've heard 3 people from about experiences in Budapest, and now we're going over to the other side of our partnership to hear about the federations and about the JFNA. So Lisa is first, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Lisa Long. I'm the Financial Resource Development Director for the Youngstown Area Jewish Federation. I'm going to share my screen here, sharing this time with Nami from San Antonio. So I'm going to start my 5-minute timer and try to talk fast. So Nami and I were honored to be part of the Ukraine Crisis 2022 Leadership Fly-In with JFNA, of many different federations from across North America. I'm going to start kind of in reverse order. A couple folks from our federation are on the call right now, Melissa and Bonnie. This is the most amazing thing that has happened with our federation, which is Zena, who is the one who's holding the balloons, is in our finance department here at the federation, and the 3 wonderful people next to her are actually her family, who we were able to rescue from Ukraine and resettle in Youngstown just this past week. So amazing work by our team, and we're eager to share the resources of how we got that done with other federations across North America. So let's go back to the beginning now. We went to we were invited to go to Poland in the beginning of April. It was about a week before we left that we found out that we were going. At this point, our federation had donated $35,000 to the Ukrainian relief efforts, and then individual donors in our community had added to that, giving our total to about more than $40,000. When we announced this trip, we asked for money to be donated and also for supplies. So you can see here, this is 300 pounds of supplies that we collected. You can see at this table here at our JCC in Youngstown, we brought over to Poland, and another 300 pounds that we shipped out of Cleveland. We also were able to raise just shy of $6,000. When we came home, we were able to talk to one of our largest foundation endowment within our foundation here in Youngstown and do some granting directly to the organizations that we had met while we were on the ground in Poland. And I'm proud to report that we were able to grant $29,964 to 5 different organizations that we met along this fly-in. So this was one of the first centers that we went to. Nancy Burnett and I, a wonderful lay leader in our community, and I went a couple days early for the fly-in, and we went to this expo center right outside of Warsaw that had been turned into a refugee center. Refugees are here anywhere from 24 to 72 hours. Some are here up to a month. There's no lights inside at all. The showers are outside. But what we found inside was one of our partnership organizations, Dror Israel, and they have opened up the childcare centers in this expo center. And it's translated to, you can see up here, a place in the heart. They were serving, when we were there in April, up to 600 children a day, 9:30 to 7 p.m. every single day. But this voice is much better than mine to tell you why it's important. And video cannot be loaded. Never mind. I'm happy to share this video later, but she shares in the quote that for some reason isn't loading that it's the only place that has light and laughter within the expo center, and that is certainly what we saw. Look at the smiling faces, the kids just able to be kids, and these are educators from Israel, from educators kibbutzes in Israel who have come over to do work there in the expo center, and it was just amazing and heartwarming to see. Our next stop was the JCC in Warsaw. And I just got a picture of this lovely lady here today. My husband is actually over in Warsaw right now with Classrooms Without Borders, which is another program supported by Federation. And she is one of the leaders at the JCC in Warsaw. And my husband was able to connect with her today, so kind of a full circle moment for our family. But this JCC in Warsaw has opened a daycare for refugees. It runs from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday. And it's not just open for Ukrainian refugees. What they realized was there are so many refugees coming to Poland from so many different countries because there are unfortunately so many humanitarian crises happening. And so they decided that this isn't just for Ukrainian refugees. This is for all refugees, that they want to be a welcoming community. And they've really found that the silver lining of this has been that refugees are no longer seen as the other. It's it's something that has really opened their eyes to how everybody really needs help. They do a free brunch for all refugees every Sunday. And what we did on this Sunday is we actually paid for everybody to eat through our federation. Wow, that 5 minutes went really quickly. I don't want to cut Nami off short, so I will stop mine, but I'm going to send our entire slide presentation with notes to Johnny if you want to send it to those who are on this call.
Definitely. Thank you. And over to
Hi,
Nami.
everybody. Hopefully you see the slideshow at this point. My name is Nami Echelov, and I am the president and CEO of the Jewish Federation of San Antonio. For me, this experience, just a quick word, was a little bit surreal. My maternal grandfather was born in Ukraine. My maternal grandmother was born in Poland. And growing up, the two countries that I never thought I would ever visit during my lifetime was Poland and Ukraine. They were not the countries that were on the list of going to visit. We did a lot of traveling, but those two, they were so personal to my grandparents in a not so positive way that when we had the opportunity, as Lisa mentioned, to be able to make this visit, sort of had this crisis of conscience. Obviously, there was a need. It was important to be a witness to the experience. In San Antonio, we have a Holocaust museum here. And so understanding the responsibility of being a witness to events in history, we ended up deciding to participate and go on. So Lisa sort of set up the experience that we had with the pre-trip and the first day. I'm going to share a little bit about the second day when we got to the border. At the border, it was a little bit surreal again. At this border crossing, not sure if you can see back here, but there was actually train tracks. Our bus literally pulled up right next to the train tracks. And for those of us, who it was such a whirlwind experience, we're trying to deal with all of our emotions in all of this, and obviously taking care of what we're trying to do. There was a lot of sort of personal experiences that were happening going through. This picture right here, down here below, I'm not sure if you can actually see the Israeli flag right here. Hopefully you can. You're on a screen that is large enough. Sorry, let me go back a second. This was basically as the refugees, the immigrants were walking across the border, as you heard earlier, that they couldn't travel across the border, they had to walk. And so amongst the Ukrainian flags and the Polish flags, there was actually an Israeli flag, was one of the first signs that you could see. So over here, the video that you're seeing is a volunteer that would meet the refugee with these shopping carts to be able to help them, because they could only carry whatever they could carry over. Here is a family, a mother and a father with their 3 children. Later on, a few minutes later, we were actually able to see the 3 children. And you can see that they each have a stuffed animal that they were given on the other side of the border. So to try and describe what was happening at the border is really not giving it justice. I sort of used this combination of, it was the equivalent of a farmer's market, a garage sale, and what I imagine Woodstock looking like if I would have been there. It was just organized chaos. You can see in the background all these tents, and these tents were basically volunteer tents that were set up by all these nonprofit NGOs from different countries. This one up here in the top left, you can see there are children's strollers outside. This was a tent from volunteers from France, and they basically had collected strollers. So for any family that couldn't come across with their stroller, there was at least an opportunity to just pick a stroller and sort of start their rebuilding their life on the other side of the border. Over here, you can see these two little children. By the way, it was about 30 degrees, 35 degrees. It was freezing. It looked sunny and beautiful, but it was cold. There was snow on the ground. And so you can see here, these propane tanks are basically just warm. There's a heater right here. And these two children had just come across with the mother. They're wearing their snowsuits and they stopped at this tent to grab, I think they were having a banana, but just to try and warm up and just to be able to get some energy. Over here, you can see just sort of the organized chaos. Every tent was trying to provide something different for the different refugees. This one down here is actually the Israeli tent. And this is the first tent on the other side of the border. When the immigrants came over, the first tent that they saw, that's where the Israel flag was a field hospital. Now, the strange thing about the field hospitals, as we all know from all the stories, whenever there's a crisis in the world, Israel sends doctors and they build a field hospital. The difference in this case is that typically the field hospital is for trauma care. You've got doctors that are coming to deal with trauma, whether it's an earthquake, whether it's a tidal wave, whether it's a collapsed building, whatever the case may be, the doctors that come over are trauma doctors. In this particular case, this wasn't trauma. This was mental trauma, not physical trauma. And so the first doctors that came over actually were not the right doctors. And there was actually a transition that needed to take place, that those doctors, those initial doctors that came over, volunteers, of course, ended up having to go back and sort of reset with mental health professionals that came over. And so they set up their tent and that was sort of the Israel tent. It was pretty fascinating to see all the different countries' flags. Over here, you see the Egyptian flag. This is just Egyptian volunteers sitting and with some food, with some stuff. Down here, you see this tent was basically a phone charging tent. For people that had been wandering for so many days trying to cross the border, their phones they didn't have places to plug in their phones. So one of the first places for them to be able to come across was this phone charging opportunity. You see the United Nations tent over here. You see another Jewish organization over here. And over here, it's not so easy to see, but this is everything this mother and child now own. They picked up a stroller, they picked up some other stuff, and now they're just waiting to get to the Humanitarian Crisis Center from the border. So this is at the Humanitarian Crisis Center. Lisa shared the one that they went to that was right outside of Warsaw, Poland. This was a few minutes away from the border crossing that we went to. And I'm going to play this video again. This was basically a supermarket, a Tesco, for those who are familiar with European supermarkets, that was gutted. It was empty. And they turned it into a crisis center to be able to absorb the refugees. We weren't allowed to take pictures inside, except for in certain places. And so it was a pretty fascinating experience. It was almost like the United Nations. There were tables there with flags of different countries. And the refugees, they come in, they're there for anywhere from 24 to 72 hours. And they come in, and during those 3 days, they have to decide what country they're going to move to. Where are they going to go to? Because these are not in the hotels that were earlier described by Maya. These are refugees that are now just figuring out where do they go to. So they basically stay in those beds and those cots for 24 to 72 hours, and they go to these tables where all these countries are set up with volunteers to try and absorb these refugees. So they might go to Belgium. Do you have any spaces for me today? Germany, do you have any spaces for me today? Great Britain, do you have any spaces for me today? And they sort of put it in their name. They give them the criteria, how many family members, and they wait to find out if they get the thumbs up that they can go to that country. If they don't, then the next day they go there, and it's different countries, not necessarily the same country. And so this is really what they were going through during the peak of the crisis. One of the beauties, that gave us tremendous joy and pride as our group is that we saw not only the Israeli flag in many places, we also saw obviously the Star of David in a lot of different places. As Lisa described in the humanitarian center that she had attended before the trip started, there was another daycare center, and this one staffed by Israeli volunteers, Shomer Hatzair volunteers that had come, and they were basically trying to give the mothers, the grandparents, any of the adults some respite by creating a daycare center for the children, so that the parents could try and have some downtime, as well as try and figure out where they were going to go to from here. And obviously, this is not a Jewish refugee center. This is just a refugee center. But Israel's, the flag was prevalent in a lot of different places. Next door to this daycare center was a medical center. Again, staffed by Israeli volunteers, Israeli doctors that had come in. And I'm not going to play this video; it's just too long. But we'll be able to share it after the fact. But these doctors this week were staffed by Hadassah Hospital doctors, and then the following, these were Beilinson Hospital, and the following week they were going to be bringing in Hadassah Hospital doctors. So the hospitals in Israel had simply, they identify their volunteers and they come in. And this was the head doctor over here. She was describing sort of this, they were prepared for trauma. Again, they were coming in as these ER doctors ready for trauma. And the reality is that they were dealing with upset stomach aches of children, mothers with just tremendous anxiety. It was a pretty surreal experience. This group actually also brought in a volunteer clown just to try and lighten the load of, so it's not just about the medicines and the treatments. It's also about the emotional toll that this experience was taking over the children, the parents, and even the volunteers themselves. So it was great to see. So as Lisa described, each federation has sort of a different relationship with other countries and other communities around the world. And I'm going to wrap up with this really, really quickly. The Jewish Federation of San Antonio has a special relationship with Moldova. And as was described earlier, Moldova is actually one of the border countries with Ukraine. It's actually the poorest country in Europe, has no natural resources, has no tourist industry, has no coastal front. And it's actually Chisinau, formerly Kishinev, is one of the closest Jewish communities to Odessa. So a lot of the Odessa Jews have relationships with Moldova. And so that was where we decided to invest our resources as a community. And we were able to raise over $500,000 during the crisis to be able to invest in the Moldovan community. It was a lot to do with also trying to lower the level of anti-Semitism, because a lot of the Jewish agencies went into Chisinau and were trying to take care of the Jews that were coming across from Odessa. At the same time, we needed to invest in the Moldovan community because they saw all this incredible efforts taking care of the Jews that were coming over, but we had to be able to try and make sure that the Jewish community didn't end up being a target of anti-Semitism because of the resources that were coming in. So we also invested into the local community. Our partners on the ground were, United Hatzalah. They were the initial ones there. Again, trauma doctors. They set up a trauma hospital, but which wasn't really used. They ended up having to switch out and bring in mental health professionals. They were creating kosher meals. As many of you might know, United Hatzalah are all religious, observant volunteers. So they converted an Irish pub into a kosher field restaurant, and were providing kosher meals. These are some of the local Moldovans that were peeling the potatoes and doing all those things. So one quick story. In Moldova, they didn't have the facilities like Poland has, or like some of the larger other countries that could create these central areas to house people. So the Moldovan community essentially opened up their doors for the refugees that were coming in, housed them, put them on the couches, put them on the floor, just gave them spaces. You heard story after story after story of the local Moldovans just opening up their homes. While we were there, we had volunteers on the ground. While our volunteers were there, they heard of the story of a farmer who had taken in two families. One family brought some potatoes, one family brought a chicken. And I'm running over. Bottom line is, This farmer, I apologize, this farmer actually slaughtered his milk cow to be able to feed the families that were there. So we went out and we bought a milk cow for this farmer and delivered it with a minivan. So amazing stories, just one after another. And I apologize, Johnny. I'm the one who actually told Johnny to manage me, and I just saw that he was trying to manage me desperately, and I distracted. Sorry, I apologize.
Thank you, Nami. And it's so hard because each story is, I mean, we could talk for hours about each one of our presenter. It's so hard. And I apologize to everyone that I'm writing to in the chat to that we need to end. It's really hard to have to move you on. And I'm really pleased for the next presenter, Golan Rosenberg, who is the director of the community centers in Mateh Asher here in our partnership area in Israel. And I think that Golan is going to kind of give us some like an end to the circle. So Golan, I should start with the video.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Start with the video. I think pictures and a small video will bring us to the main issue of what we are dealing in Israel, and not with refugees, with people who wants to make aliyah. That's a little bit the difference between what we are dealing.
Okay,
so
here we go.
Thanks, Johnny. I'm going to tell you during the pictures and the video what they are doing. This is some activities that we're doing with the communities in Mateh Asher and with teenagers that with the schools and everything. So this is a concert that we went with the Ukrainian in Israel. When we did it all together in the kibbutz, all the families together. This is a matching of grave that we're doing in the Holocaust Day. At the end of the Holocaust Day, the doors will be matching together. Activities in school, again, the start. This is the celebration in together with them. Some of the stuff that we need to bring them to the home. Futures, children. Lots of activities that we started to do with them. This is the fun they are doing. That's starting April. Okay, so first of all, good evening, everyone. I'm going to start with that we are dealing with only families that making aliyah to Israel. We are not dealing with refugees that coming to Israel. This is the main situation that we are. I can tell you that more than 30 families and more than 100 people, I mean, children, adults, came to the Mateh Asher region Kulsar, and with and there are, most of them are living in Kibbutz Yichiyam, 17 families, and the other 30 families are living in another 8 kibbutzim and moshavim in Mateh Asher in the region in the Western Galil. What they are doing in those months that they came, first of all, we had to arrange them small houses that they will be able to come and to get to Israel. Second, we have to give them the opportunity to go to for the children to school or to activities and to deal with the new life that they came to Israel. I can tell you that not only people from the Ukraine came to Israel and make Aliyah. They came a lot of Russia, from Belarus and Ukraine. So we have difference from a different country that came to make Aliyah in Israel. And now they are started to learn Hebrew until the end of August. And this is the first 5 months that they are doing with the agent in Israel. And after that, they are going to start to start a new life. I mean, to be able to find some jobs or to continue with their own life in Mate Asher or outside of Mate Asher. So we are hopefully that most of them will stay in the kibbutzim, in the moshavim, in the region, but some of them probably will go out and find themselves in another cities in Israel. Until now, none of the families are go back to Russia or to the country that they came from. So we are hopefully that they will stay in Israel. I can tell you that the main issue that we are dealing with now is how to give them the most value of things that they will be able to stay in Israel. Because I think that everyone at the beginning was very, as everyone said, to rush and to help them and to give them everything that they need. But I think that now the main thing is to make them involved with our activities, our community, to find them some jobs after they're going to finish the ulpan that they are making. So now this is the main things that I think I know, not that I think, that we are dealing with, the region coastal are dealing with, and we are starting to give them some opportunity to find them some job that they can do. We have doctors that came, lawyers that came, a lot of people that I think that will be able to find themselves in works in Israel, but this is something that we have to handle with them together, because if not, I think that most of them or some of them will not find themselves involving with in Israel. So this is, I think, the main thing that we have to deal with. I can tell you that as long as everyone was speaking, that the main thing is that we are that the children, we are seeing the children that are affecting is the as you said, it's something that now will be after the time that they came from the war, and now we can see some things that goes out with the children during that they are involving with the Israeli children inside. They don't know Hebrew, so it's very hard for them to get inside. And I think some of the effects of the war is beginning to go now from the children outside, and we are starting to take care with, how do you say it? Johnny will help me with people that mentality will help them.
Post-trauma.
Yeah, post-trauma. Thank you. With post-trauma now, that we are starting to see those kinds of things that with the children more than one with the families. And the last thing that I will share with you is that some of the families that came without their husbands, some of them are staying still over there in Ukraine or in Russia. Not all of them came. So some of them, they are single families, which is another issue that we are dealing with some of the families. So this is some of things that we are doing. We are trying to, we are doing the best. But it's hard. It's hard work, and it's hard situation that we are dealing between with ourselves and with them together.
Thank you very much, Golan. I'm going to hand over to Marcy to close. I just want to say two very, very, very quick things. One is, I don't know if you noticed, but in Golan's slideshow, at the end, the refugees were learning in a classroom. And that classroom is in Kibbutz Yechiam, here in our partnership region. And I was there several weeks ago before it was renovated. It was an old classroom that hadn't been used for several years. And it was so nice to see it renovated. And our partnership helped with a donation of $20,000 to Mate Asher and to Kibbutz Yechiam for exactly that purpose. And I know it's a tiny, tiny drop in the ocean of all of the help that's needed, but I'm really pleased that we were able to help in any way. We don't have a representative from ACO here, but also in our partnership City and ACO, there's similar things going on. Maybe another time we can write about what's going on there. We will do soon, but there's also amazing, desperate things happening in ACO as well with Olim and with refugees. Marcy.
Thank you, Johnny. Thank you, everybody who spoke today. I do think we went full circle with seeing the border, Budapest, what was going on, and then the folks coming to Israel with Golan's story. So I want to thank all of our speakers. We had planned for some time for Q&A, and as you know, we don't have any time left, but I do want to mention a couple of things. First, I want to thank Iris, who is on this program. She is, and I'm going to get this wrong, but she is the regional director of partnership in the North. So I want to thank her for being here. She was instrumental in helping us pull all this together. I also want to really stress this idea of action, that this is part of our action, is informing our communities, our partnership for, as to what's going on, as to what our partnership is doing. I will say Golan and I were in Omaha when Omaha went over to I think it was Poland, and they had so much supplies with them that had been donated that they had to change to a different plane because the plane could not hold all the duffel bags of supplies. So everybody is doing what they can, and we continue to do what we can. And we will continue this with some action opportunities for all of us to work together. And we'll continue this in our conversations in Budapest as well. So thank you all so very much for being here. Johnny, I don't know if I forgot anything else. Please fill in here. But we really appreciate the attendance. And this is just one in many, many webinars that we'll do to share this information. Johnny?
Thank you so much to everyone who participated and everyone who joined. Thank you for your time and your attention. There's been a few questions and things on the chat. Please email Marcy and I afterwards and we'll follow up. And we'll publish a recording of this, and the people who presented, if you wanted to send me your presentations, I'll publish those as well so everyone can have access to them. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. We shall call everyone.
Yes.
Yeah,
bye.
wonderful, guys. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.